What is the mission of the Veterans Health Administration's Strategic Initiatives Lab, Strat Lab? How is it using virtual reality and other immersive technologies to change how the department serves veterans? And what does the future hold for VHA's Strat Lab? I'll explore these questions and so much more with my very special guest, Dr. Ann Bailey, Executive Director of the Strategic Initiatives Lab within the Veterans Health Administration. Would you tell us more about the history and mission of your office? What prompted its creation? And more importantly, how does it effectively support the mission, the overall mission of the Veterans Health Administration and VA as a whole?
Absolutely. The Strategic Initiatives Lab, or the Strat Lab, as we call it, exists to complete discovery, test, and early evaluation of emerging and high-risk technologies. And when we say high risk, we don't mean to the patient or the system, but more high risk for failure. We do this independently of things like immersive technology, where our team has unique expertise, or in collaboration with other subject matter experts, such as how we work across artificial intelligence with those teams as well. Those teams may not have the skill set or the bandwidth to complete the earliest evaluation, so that's an opportunity for us to join and support. We also want to help facilitate the next steps based on the evaluation. So do we take this effort further, or do we let it die because it didn't work? And then finally, we want to build a repeatable processes to ease the future evaluation and early implementation of these technologies. Some of the ways we do that are through communities of practice, providing playbooks, implementation guides, things like that basically make it easier for these things to continue to grow. The creation of the Strat Lab was prompted by an identified need to have a small, specially skilled team dedicated to identifying these opportunities and take on the heavy lifting of the early testing and evaluation. This will allow VA to be more agile without expending unnecessary resources on things that might fail, but if they prove effective, could truly change the landscape of healthcare delivery. And we're certainly seeing that with our work with immersive technology like augmented reality, mixed reality, and virtual reality.
Actually, could I take a minute and could you define some terms for us? And I know you have, but just to have it, I was wondering, so what is virtual reality? And I don't mean technically, but could you just make sure so our audience knows? And then you had mentioned and defined for us extended reality. I was wondering if you could juxtapose those for us again.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. So if we think about it sort of as a narrowing funnel, immersive technology being most inclusive, that could include devices that have nothing to do with anything on your head. You may have seen that recently. You certainly see it at theme parks where you go into a room and there may be things that help you smell things differently, or wind blows in your face. Those are broadly examples of immersive technology. But as we narrow that to include headsets, things on your head, that's when we start talking about extended reality. And within that umbrella of extended reality, we have augmented reality, which is least immersive and even actually doesn't even have to include a headset. But augmented reality, you put a headset on where it does include them, and you can often see the people's eyes, actually. So they can see the physical world around them, but there's a digital overlay that you can interact with. Augmented reality is usually most helpful in training and education spaces where you need to interact with your normal world, but also learn things on top of it, right? So, and then we progress through and become more immersive, and the most immersive is virtual reality. So when you put that headset on, you are now psychologically present in that virtual environment. A great example, and we don't use this in healthcare practice with our patients, but it helps people understand it, is what's called the Planck experience. So you put the headset on, you walk into a virtual elevator, you know psychologically you are still in the room you were in before you put that headset on, but that elevator takes you up 50 stories, and then the doors open. And all you have to do is walk forward onto this plank that may be 5 or 6 feet long and 6 inches wide. And the number of people who struggle to take a step forward is fascinating. But it shows the power of that psychological presence. And that's why we see the benefits with positive distraction, with training and education, with physical rehabilitation, because people are psychologically present in that virtual environment. Mixed reality, the one in the middle, is exactly as it sounds. You can more seamlessly, with a single device, pass between the ability to see your physical world and interact with it to merge into or mix with that completely immersed environment. So hope that's helpful.
So, when I was prepping to talk with you, I was astonished by the mission of the Strat Lab, and I know it's a place, as you pointed out, for disruptive technologies to grow. And so, to that end, I was hoping you would share with us your strategic vision for the lab and outline some of your key strategic priorities over the next couple of years, if you will.
Sure. So one of the brilliant things I love about the lab is we get to be agile and evolve but our three themes, our three priorities, one is innovation. So we always want to lean into doing things differently. And certainly that is relevant now with what's happening with immersive technology. It's relevant with artificial intelligence and other things, again, that are disruptive and emerging. But then as we take and learn from that innovation process, we want to scale it. We don't want it to die in the innovation space. So one of the ways that we're doing that now is identifying our priorities across the organization, across our office. How do we prioritize things? How do we consider the intake process? And then what do we do when it's time, again, to let things die, to kill them, or to carry them forward? And then the third priority then to connect all three together is the systematizing of it all. So how do we take an innovation that started with an idea, a good understanding of a problem? We've scaled it now by making sure it aligns with priorities and processes and criteria. And now we want to make it normal, hand it off, systematize it so that we can start back over in the process. Building out what those three things look like is the current priority. Those are three priorities of the lab.
The next question I had was around the benefits. If you can delve into the benefits of this, and what are some of the risks and barriers of using VR in a healthcare environment?
These are no small questions, that's for sure. So there's increasing evidence to support improvement in pain perception, decrease in anxiety and stress, improvement in symptoms of depression, increase engagement with others, which you can imagine with loneliness and isolation being such a challenge and certainly impacting sort of a cascade of healthcare challenges. We're finding increased engagement with others in a really important way. And additionally, it's an incredible learning environment. So there's evidence to support that people learn faster, they can retain it longer, they can practice asynchronously, all at lower costs. And as we dive deeply and evaluate more rigorously as an organization, we want to better understand how this could have impact in access to and cost of care. There's certainly promising and emerging evidence, which is exciting. Another aspect of the technology that we really lean into is the low risk profile. Right? Cyber sickness, or some people call it sim sickness, is the most common complaint. It happens less and less frequently as the technology has gotten better, as we understand better how to use it, and certainly as people use it more. So different from a medication, if I give someone a medication and they have a side effect, well, I then have to treat the side effect. Versus with cyber sickness, if people experience it, you take the headset off and it resolves pretty quickly. So there's the barriers that we've experienced are not uncommon when it comes to innovation. So we're disrupting the status quo. We have to find ways to fund it. There are people who tend to say no quickly and maybe hesitant to consider that new or different approach, right? We expect those things. But we also address them in real time and are planning ahead for that long-term strategy and anticipation, learning from previous innovations for sure. It's our goal to win over hearts and minds, mostly because we hear the testimonies of our veterans themselves who've found benefit from this technology at times when nothing else has worked or when they've been unwilling to try something. They were willing to try VR, either out of curiosity or someone gave them the courage. It's not hard to get on board when you have that kind of enthusiasm and engagement.
So can we switch from rehabilitation to, and you've mentioned this earlier about non-pharmacological approaches to pain management, to chronic pain, and also to post-traumatic stress and other mental challenges. How are you using this technology in that area?
We are actually overseeing two different chronic pain specific related implementations in VA Immersive. One is for at-home chronic low back pain management, and the other is for chronic pain and suicide prevention. This is an example. I've talked about collaboration and community. These projects are actually funded by different offices in the VA, and we just bring the immersive technology experience and the actual implementation. So Office of Pain Management and Office of Mental Health and Suicide Prevention. Again, showing the diversity of use for these devices, which is exciting. The at-home chronic low back pain implementation is using VR to deliver an evidence-based approach, cognitive behavioral therapy, in an engaging environment with VR to empower the patient to learn those skills at home in their own time. We're also working with VA's implementation science team to evaluate and then improve, right? What do we learn from the evaluation? We want to implement that from both the clinician and the veteran's perspective. For the chronic pain and suicide prevention implementation is actually multifaceted. First of all, we got devices to mental health and non-mental health providers in an effort to leverage standardized delivery of the content of mindful practice content, expand access to mental health supportive care without increasing the burden or requirement only for mental health providers. And then VA subject matter experts and psychologists, clinical team members, as well as some external experts have come together to design scenarios to help veterans with experiences that may be challenging in their day-to-day life, going to grocery stores or restaurants, loud environments, things like that. This is another example where they can practice those things in a safe space. And we're really trying to understand the problem from the veteran perspective, and then we can solve it in a way that meets the veteran's needs where they are.
And are there any other key accomplishments that you'd like to highlight? And more importantly, what does the future hold for your office?
I think there's an opportunity to highlight the fact that we've heard repeatedly that VA is the global leader of clinical implementation of immersive technology. We're really, really excited about that. We believe in VA's ability to affect change, as I mentioned with things earlier that are now normal. We want to use our size and scale to transform global healthcare. We also think this ensures that we attract and retain the best and brightest, because the opportunity to do life-changing things within VA is very real. I've certainly experienced that myself. But I also want to highlight some of the incredible accomplishments that have happened in other programs within our office, i.e. the innovation ecosystem that I mentioned. They've partnered with the field to embed physical therapy into primary care, an effort that sets the example for other transformational care models. Center for Care and Payment Innovation is literally designed to test and evaluate innovation in the business and care model space. And so there's some immense potential to uncover opportunities to innovate within that group. SimLearn launched SimVet program, where they are looking at emerging technologies and evaluating them in a simulated environment to ensure safety before it ever touches a patient. And then Advanced Manufacturing, they received VA's first compassionate use designation from the FDA for a GeoStent, a 3D printed hearing device that was designed for a South Carolina veteran with a rare form of hearing loss who got to name it. So it's actually named after his grandson, which I think is a cool closing to that story. But VA has vast potential to lead and define healthcare innovation. And I'm looking forward to seeing what that looks like as we move forward.
This has been the Business of Government Hour, a conversation with Dr. Ann Bailey, Executive Director of the Strategic Initiatives Lab within the Veterans Health Administration. Be sure to join us next time for another informative, insightful, and in-depth conversation on improving government leadership and its effectiveness. Until then, subscribe, download, and listen to the entire interview at iTunes, Spotify, Audible, or on your favorite podcast app, and as always at businessofgovernment.org.